Hello and good morning, everybody. It's your host, AJ Falcon, reviewing another Pokeymanz. I think this is part 6. Hopefully my microphone's coming through good. The music isn't too loud. But this is prep for my campaign. Tonight I actually have session 0 of Pokeymanz, so I'm going to get to kind of feel out the player's desires, cover the safety tools, go over the concept of the campaign, see if everybody's on board for it, and then play the wonderful world of Pokemon with my players. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If people do start to trickle in, let me know if the music is a good level. I don't want it to be stronger than my voice, but I do want you guys to be able to enjoy some classic Pokemon tracks. Alrighty, let's dive into clocks. Alright, hook countdowns, triggers, and clocks. As part of designing an open journey, there might be things that you want to happen in a certain order if the PCs don't interfere, or something critically important that might happen if certain events come to pass, or just generally time-sensitive events. Hooks of this sort should be considered a countdown or trigger. They don't come to pass and become news. In other words, broadcasted to the PCs are fully understood. Until this timer ticks down to 0 or until a faction acts upon them in some way. For example, consider a party having 2 episodes until the evil team's evilness laser is fired at the town of Backstoryville. Or maybe there's a tournament happening nearby, but the PCs have a 4-episode window to make their way there and compete. So it's an artificial tracker of time, kind of a motivation for the players. Sometimes you start it before they are aware, though there should be a large alluding facts to it. Other times you start at the moment they're aware. This may suggest only starting it when they know it's there, but it can be used in many facets and ways and stuff. PCs may or may not be aware of a countdown. There we go. Imagine I read one more line. Some countdowns may be invisible to the players unless the players are actively paying attention to and researching their source. Just as the GM setting a 3-episode countdown to the player's first introductory encounter with the evil team that they later plan to have making trouble on a worldwide scale. When I hear the word worldwide, it's a sickness. But I think of Step Brothers, they're going worldwide, and their songs like Boats and Hoes and stuff. Yeah, you ever saw the Step Brother movie? That movie's so good. So good in a garbage way, right? Alright, let's continue the clocks though. Keep your prep countdowns on the same time scale. Always episodes, sessions, arcs, etc. to make bookkeeping easier on yourself. Okay, so some pretty kind of easy way to facilitate the use of clocks. Trigger could be unknown to the players, but don't have too many untelegraphed secrets laying around. It'll clutter your notes and tempt you to subtly push the PCs to them, i.e. the railroad. I'm checking my sound levels. I think the sound's fine. Just to appease my mind, I'm going to turn on the music. Since I don't have anybody in here yet to like confirm if the music's obnoxiously loud or not. And I like to listen back to these instead of reread the sections. I'll play it on the side while I'm prepping the sessions, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing I read. So it's nice for me too to hear myself. Okay, so we have triggers, which are hooks waiting for a specific event to trigger them, and countdowns which go off at a specific time. These can be great on their own, or are very simple to conceptualize and write down. But what if I need something a little more complicated? They can be combined. Let's say I have a situation where I need a mix of these two. I have an event which will become a hook when some time has gone by and requires a trigger. After that, in cases like these, it can be good to conceptualize a clock. Clocks are a diagram explaining what steps and what order need to happen for a given outcome. They can be used in a moment-to-moment play, but as a prepping tool, we're going to want them to generate hooks. For our example, let's say that the PCs are in a mountain area and the GM wants to unleash an avalanche if they stay too long and act foolhardily. They set up a clock, 2 episodes in that region, and it's primed to blow. Is that you, Mulan? The highest kill count Disney character? After that, if anyone in the area causes noise, a giant avalanche should cause a mountain-wide disaster. This could look like this in the notes. Your motherfucking mountain ends 2 episodes from now. First episode, second episode, loud noise. First episode, second one, loud noise. Whoa. First condition, second condition, final condition. Alright. When the clock is filled, clockwise of course, the associated hook in this case, the very immediate hook of deal with an avalanche. The very immediate hook of deal with an avalanche. Okay, I thought I read that wrong. Reveals itself to the players. The news for this one might be, say, an ominous rumbling from uphill. Because clocks are organized in discrete steps, it's possible to send out news in the form of hints. Think of these as soft hints to the players that sometimes may happen if they don't head it off. Okay, cool. So clocks are utilized comfortably and simple. They're pretty simple. But they're diverse, right? I see it mentions Blades in the Dark. I was thinking about Blades in the Dark, and Fabulo Team uses clocks a lot. There are many advantages and disadvantages of clocks as a note-keeping device. The advantages are they pack a lot of information into a simple diagram. Clocks are intuitive for most people, but especially visual thinkers to understand. Clocks are highly customizable to the needs of any specific countdown, as we'll get into below. They are not supported natively by many digital prep tools, meaning that will often take more effort to rig up digitally than a notebook. Now that used to be true. Things like Roll20, Foundry, I can't speak to things outside of that. We have clock tools. They're just multi-sided images that you can click and forward them or reverse them, and it'll fill in one more panel. I use them in my games now, so digitally it's pretty easy to pop a clock on the map, whether it's visible or not to the players, and advance the clock or subtract from it. So it's gonna be cool to use clocks, and I'm gonna have those on stream and stuff. Because they're so easy to make, it's easy to get carried away with pages and pages of clocks and bogged down prep. Blazing the Dark fans will want to strike up conversation if they see your notes. That's true. As mentioned above, there are tons of ways to customize clocks to your exact needs. Here are a few examples of how to hack them. A clock can be filled non-linearly, such as the collection of a number of different specific artifacts for some ritual. Clocks can have conditions under which they lose steps. Clocks may start partially filled already. Clocks may be visible to the players. Clocks may form clock Voltron, oh lord, and have sub-clocks where their steps require steps. Not recommended most of the time. That sounds complex. Maybe to end the campaign you have this complex Voltron clock. Sometimes clocks can even fail if you're a night owl and your Pokemon sleep starts at 4:01 a.m. Or if I decide to stream at 8:45 in the morning in New York, where most of my viewers, it's 5 o'clock. Alright, optional. Factions, turns, and plan. Factions, turns, and plans. I'm dropping a whole faction subsystem here. This is a joke. The system described above works for content that may arise and disappear with inaction in the streamlined way, but it doesn't give structure for how a group could interact with the behind-the-scene clocks and countdowns. For this, we have plans. Plans are composed of a faction attempting to execute them. I read execute them. I know what you mean, like execute the plan, but at first I was just like, oh my god, they're killing the people. A tangible goal. Get another resource, dunk on a competitor, finish their homework, and a clock to track progress. The trick is to count down not on time, but on successful actions. Alright, requires a votee to hook for X amount of actions before it comes to fruition. Let's see, I'm going to read the bolded areas just to streamline it a tiny bit. Alright, different factions may have more turns available to them depending on a few factors. A faction roll to advance the plan with whatever NPC and resource they have. Roll together, hit moves the clock forward. Okay. Plan should usually be telegraphed to the players, which is always important, even if indirectly. When PCs interact with a plan and defeat its NPC or cut its resources, it may be foiled. The faction will generally have to choose between losing access to a member, a resource, or scrapping the plan altogether. Which is important too. I have to talk to my players in Session 0 about how they want to handle... In the games, the bad guys, they just kind of walked off. But I know a lot of players would try to, stop them from walking off, right? They'll grab them, they'll hold them down. Especially if they're used to D&D, where they just kind of, unfortunately, nonchalantly just murder everything, right? Like, oh, let's go have some coffee later. While they're walking around with some dude's head in their bag. But they're perfectly normal good guys. Let me turn down the emotional track. It's really good, but I'm worried that it's too loud. I guess I could play it on my phone to hear my voice back, but I don't want to. I don't waste too much time. Even though I'm almost through this meaty book, which has a lot of great information. It doesn't feel like bloated or anything. Alright, when you design factions, be sure to consider scale. A region-wide organization may group together minor NPCs into one NPC unit or count mooks as a resource. With that in mind, to convert factions created with the Faction Notes toolset and previously created the Faction Notes toolset. Damn, English is hard, especially in the morning. An admin or super weapon might be D10 and D12, or maybe even a D20, right? Just shoot this massive super cannon, goosh! Thieves with a Meowth might count as a single D4 NPC. Lol. That's so sad. Sorry, Team Rocket. You're blasting off again. PCs collectively count as a faction, and as such, they may even cook up their own plans, using their downtime and actions during sessions if they would like to use their framework. I guess their team, they could also be, I don't know. What if your players are the evil people all along? I do feel like a lot of PCs do very evil stuff, but they act like it's good stuff. Like they'll just go murder a group of people because they were mildly inconvenienced, but they're the good guys. Or if you like decline like your players, even the smallest thing, the NPC is the most horrible person to ever exist, they should die. But yeah, there's that's a different topic for like kind of PC entitlement in games. And it's almost like delusional to an extent sometimes. I'm just like, oh god. I'm not gonna take a step back and show these guys. We're just gonna keep pushing. Are you sitting in my chair? Stabs him in the throat. We're the good guys. For best streamlining these rules, I discourage having more than 4 active factions, including the PCs. So really like try not to exceed 3, it says. But how often do factions get to roll? For maximum simplicity, give small factions 1 action per downtime and large ones 2 or 3. For more granular control, give a faction 1 action per each notable member. A final note, events during sessions may influence a faction, even outside of its planned clocks. A powerful asset degrading with each use, the actions of the PCs prompting and returning Mook to be more dangerous, a major villain, having a change of heart, or other story reasons for memberships and resource values, and existence to fluctuate are all fair game. A final note. These are super optional tools. These are a super optional tool. They're a little complex. Use and discard as needed. Faction turn examples. Let's say Team Rocket, whose faction motivation is to swim in money like Scrooge McDuck, has a plan in Celadon City to use their casino front to gain money enough to add another resource to their faction in the form of slot revenues, D10. The GM decides that this is a small scale but important operation, so it's got 3 actions required to complete, and Team Rocket is currently putting an action towards it with one of their admins, the acting NPC, and a group of grunts, the resource, every episode. They could really use that slot revenue to help expedite their other plans in Saffron City. Rockets get slots revenue D10. Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3. Noise. Hint, 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 hint. The GM begins the clock as the PCs get to Celadon. The admin rolls a success on both actions, putting the clock up by 2 steps. As the PCs cross through town, during other activities over the course of 2 episodes, they see a rocket grunt near the game corner, and hear rumors that the game corner's Pokemon prize came in a strange, unmarked truck. On the latter hint, the players decide to act. Just 1 more to go. I got a good feeling about this one, boss. It's always just 1 more. Faction turns examples continued. In the example above, the PCs choose to use their next episode to investigate and follow the news they've been given. They discover and charge into the game corner's hidden rocket base, cleaning the place out in a lively session full of encounters, and on the GM tracking side, foiling Team Rocket's plans. Rather than risk their precious admin or let their grunts be captured and interrogated so close to the fruition of their Saffron operation, Team Rocket chooses to let their plan fail and let go of that new resource they wanted. In a different circumstance, they may have let their admin go to jail, or let the grunts take the fall. Enough of these types of failure, and an organization could very well dwindle and fall. Had the PCs not interfered here, the Rockets may have taken a near unshakable control of Celadon for all that money, similar to the way they did in Saffron while the PCs were busy elsewhere. Or maybe Grunts and Silphco would have healing items on hand from the extra funding if the PCs eventually tried to foil that plan. Or maybe the money would have allowed them to roll a critical on another plan roll and capture Mewtwo. Nice. These are all very, very great things. Alright, what happens if NPCs fight? Well, consider that the faction rules exist not to simulate real battles between factions, but to facilitate making the PCs stick their nose into things in a dynamic world. There are two simple options. The first option is that when an NPC faction goes to stop another one's plans, or they have conflicting plans, they are deadlocked until the PCs do something about it. This has the advantage of requiring much less upkeep and always involving the players. A second option is that when factions come to a conflict as above, the GM sits down and does a one-time calculation of how many dice steps the acting NPCs and the resources have. Okay. There's some maths here, some mathontes. Divide both factions NPCs dice plus resource dice by 2. D10 plus D4 equals 14. Divided by 2 for 7. Round down the number for both. This is simplified / complex / simple. That's how many episodes it will take for the weaker side to lose. It's now a simple countdown. Okay, good. Of course, when it comes to things like this, an arbitrary 6 counter and stuff like that may be easier to just manage as a DM instead of even any real numbers. Though I guess this could help you find a proper number if you're scrambling to figure something out, and then make your timeline around that time. It's also kind of appropriate if you want the PCs to be scrambling to figure it out. So you throw a number out there that's not as arbitrary because it has these values assigned to it. Shop to live, live to shop. Gameplay loops. The gameplay loop is a term for the main point of a game. It's the cycle of activity that engages you in when playing. And making a fun gameplay loop is the most unshakable, important part of any game. It's called a loop, of course, because following it would lead you to another loop of the same gameplay if it changed. That is so true. In the Pokemon games, the gameplay loop is get to a new area, catch new Pokemon, train, do an important capstone event, usually followed by a battle, unlock a new area, or way to interact with existing areas, rinse, repeat. It is, and I can't stress this enough, amazing actually. It really is. The best part about Pokemon is that every single time anyone goes anywhere, there's going to be new Pokemon. Not necessarily brand new Pokemon, but like new Pokemon in the area. There's going to be new people in the towns. There's going to be a new challenge, whether that's a gym badge, the evil organization, or just some other happenstance that is going on here. And it's the gameplay formula, the repeat gameplay is that the parties will likely every session travel somewhere, solve some type of obstacle, meet some type of unique Pokemon, or have a unique Pokemon or NPC interaction, compete against a gym, a skilled trainer, or discover something in their backstory. And it's going to be the same thing in different shapes every session. It sounds like a lot of moving pieces, but at the end of the day, the loop is simple. It has about 6 to 8 truly moving pieces, and then obviously there's sporadic random things that you don't really have to worry about too often that are going to consistently show its face, and that is the gameplay loop. Excellent. The default go. How do we reconcile this? Understand all callings to be appended by interacting with new Pokemon in some way. This is a Pokemon game first and foremost. After all, what are you doing if your calling doesn't involve Pokemon? If you think about this, as a GM, you could set up personalized gameplay loops for each calling. Game states. Alright, put simply, game states are the different phases of a playing game. In the intro, we highlighted the parts of Pokemon's gameplay: loop, travel, catch, battle, train, etc. Okay, so we kind of covered the game state. You might flip between these phases as you go along, and you might get very tired of the game if it was all one activity over and over. Each different type of encounter or interaction is a game's thing. Be aware of how these interact and feed into each other. You'll probably find a decent loop naturally, right? Eventually you're going to kind of settle in on what your party seems to enjoy. You're going to get a game flow. Any successful game, even though it's a bit different for me since I run so many games in a professional format, but each game you run, eventually you're going to get into a natural flow. Things that your players just consistently enjoy, as well as your style, especially when you go into a new system and you kind of get comfortable with it. So I'm going to fall into place like a nice block or a put together Rubik's Cube. And the players are the moving pieces that are going to mess the Rubik's Cube up, and I got to keep setting it back together. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it's not going to be complete with colors on each side. It's going to be messy, and that's going to make it beautiful. That's the best part of running a game. That's different from video games. TTRPGs are yours. And the story's never going to be perfect because we're not usually professional writers. And if we are professional writers, we don't have professional actors. And if you do have professional actors and you're a professional writer, you're probably just Critical Role. In any case, the point is that as long as we have fun, we don't need to get bogged in the details. And, I don't want to put out misconception. Fun isn't that we're winning every session, right? Fun is that we're exploring our stories. Fun is that we're coming up against challenges. Fun can even be found in defeat, setting up a villain like Paul that is horrible to his Pokemon, or at least understands Pokemon differently, and then beating them one day. That sense of that revelation, that feeling of overcoming an obstacle is why some people like games like Dark Souls. Now, it doesn't have to be Dark Souls difficulty, but that sense of accomplishment can be found in any game with any form of reasonable challenge. And of course, fun is handled differently by the individual, which is why in session 0 you have to iron out what's appropriate for your group. The purpose of downtime. Yeah, if you're some random person tuning into these videos, I go on rants because I like having conversations, not just reading a linear story or a book or anything. The purpose of downtime. Downtime in Pokeymanz is rarely wasted. It's time for players to stop, plan, shop, craft, pursue personal goals that may not be a great fit for the whole group to chase. Process emotional beats or gather information. These are all things that naturally lead into other game states. In other words, downtime of some kind is a key part of a good gameplay loop as a transition state. You have all these big scenes. You want to have that beach episode or that rest episode or the go to town and knock off your shopping list episode, right? And maybe you're just stopping off for a fossil exhibition, right? One of your players is very interested in that stuff. The episode doesn't always have to have some crazy plot hook. Oh my God, the fossils were stolen. But you could do that. In any case, you want to give them time to just kind of explore the local area, relax, and really sit back and see what the players are going to get up to, which is really fun. I'm a big fan of downtime. Maps. So traveling is a really important part of Pokemon. But in most of the games up until very recently, travel is in a straight line. So there's the point of a travel game state. Exploration is a sense of novelty. In other games, this exploration is handed to you. New place, new Pokemon, look for secrets to create the illusion of true exploration. Recent entries have expanded on this and add exploration. That's true. Pokemon games have classically been extremely linear. Even the new one. It was more open world, but the GMs didn't scale. It's easy enough to program. I'm not a programmer, but it's been done plenty of times. Even in simple games, they have scaling mechanisms. And then you have complex games like Witcher, where the wolves are still challenging you later on if you're not careful, because you can just code it in to just kind of ramp up based on the character's level, right? So even in the open world game, it technically wasn't open world to a full extent, because if you tackle the story however you saw fit, that you wouldn't be able to challenge some gyms, or you'd be overpowered for other gyms. So I really hope we do get that experience. And maybe I'm missing a Pokemon title, But I do hope we get that. I remember watching Pokemon Origins and they were fighting Brock, and he had like 8 trays, and he asked how many badges somebody had. He went in there, he grabbed his like 3rd tray or something, because he knew that they were about 3 gym badges strong, and he grabbed a team of Pokemon and fought them. I think that that was such a cool visual and an understanding from the designers of Pokemon of how a world would operate with varying degrees of trainers. Maybe Brock is your last gym, not your first gym, right? Then he needs to have a team that's not level 11. You know, because this is a TTRPG, we have a map, we have a world. We start at Twinger Town, but maybe my players decide to go to Embervale Village first, and then to Route 14. Now, naturally they might move towards 2 because they're used to the game, but I'm prepared for any direction they want to go. Maybe they travel up north to H, which is the Safari Zone. That's the power of running a TTRPG, is you don't have those set linear paths if you don't want them. And I say don't want them because some players like a straightforward story. They don't want things too complex. They don't be overloaded with options and directions. And if they don't want that stuff, it's okay. No, railroad aren't always the enemies. Sometimes some players like that. I'll just be cautioning you to make sure you gather that information early on, identify it, etc. Alright, so this goes over maps. Regional maps have many advantages. Grounded in the world that exists around them, allows players to make meaningful emergent decisions, generate content on the fly, easy to organize with keying techniques, marks a clear progression of game states. Maps are cool. Bottom text. So, a good map will take a lot of planning off a GM who has the right tools, and allow players to naturally move between game states every time they make a decision. For the sandbox style, a good old-fashioned hex map is probably the ideal way to make an interactable map quickly. To that end, here's a free hex map generator. Oh, that's nice. I'll check that out later. There's also the Pokemon Tales region generator, more procedurally generated with more Pokemon-specific content. Really cool. I'll check all that stuff out later. It's a whole new world we live in. This is where we take the pieces we've been building up and put them together. I'm going to make a prep loop, or a checklist of prep that can be repeated every episode, or generate content for an open-ended game that isn't planned ahead much more than that. It is a concrete set of steps you can use to put the building blocks we've discussed together. Alright, foundations. When you're sitting down to make a game, before you pitch it to the players, consider what you want out of the game. Okay, so this is really good here. I'm doing session 0 today, so this is probably going to help me kind of put like a spyglass over what I need to get focused on. At this step, we'll call it session -1. Come up with a thematic question. I should probably write this stuff down. No, I'll just listen back to the stream later. I was about to grab a pen and paper. A thematic question, preferred gameplay loop, or that you think you'd want to focus on most, in the very bare bones of a world, or Nabikanen or Fenin region. And let someone else do the work, which is always an option. I'm a beast of burden, is that the saying? Because I like to do like all the nitty-gritty work excessively until I'm laying on the floor begging for water. Next, find players. Well, we check that one off. Generally have a session 0 before you commit to the hard boundaries of the journey. We're having a session 0 tonight, as their callings will affect how the world and game is built. Some GMs may prefer to set things like callings up and let players pick from a predetermined set of goals, which is fine, but works better when the GM is recruiting players from a public site as opposed to working with a friend group. All the usual session 0 stuff still applies here. I'm going to cover all or most of the recommended topics. Make sure to communicate during this stage that this is not a game where the PCs can passively wait for things to come to them. Or at least that will make things much harder for them. Once session 0 has been held and expectations set, you can really get down to it. Set up your map. Sprinkle it with as many points of interest as you desire. You might be a build the whole world GM, or come up with it on the spot GM, or the former shines here. Okay. Yeah, I build the whole map, but I'm known to my players as the improv god, Because they throw me with some wild shit, and I'm just 2 seconds later, I'm ready to roll with it. And it all comes together. I have the advantage of being quick on my feet, witty comebacks, able to kind of manage and handle extreme situations. And it's some of it's because I've ran a lot of games, and other things is just I have such a massive reactionary imagination that when something that looks like impossible to handle appears, I've got about 5 solutions for it a few seconds later. Which is, I know mileage varies, but even though I do all the hard work, I'm also prepared to jump off the tracks. Maybe we're on the train, the railroad, right? But we jump off on the next stop, or we jump into the water as it goes over the tracks. I'm able to deviate. And I know you know that because I deviate from reading this so often, because I'm off the rails. I'm a sandbox, a living, walking, breathing sandbox with 1,000 rules in it that each are able to be broken. If you have any plot events on a timer or trigger, make sure to give each player at least one destination related to their callings to visit. Yep. The prep loop. This is the week-to-week work maintaining the game, planning its directions, and generating new hooks and content in all stages. Apply Rule 3. After every episode, you should check in on players' goals and story beats. Is there anything you can use for the PC's action, flaws, or insecurities that will drive things forward? Have factions act and react. If you aren't using formal faction rules, not making faction rolls and just give them faction turns, they can reasonably accomplish. Roll some dice. One or more of these faction actions might generate news or trigger countdown hooks. I like this little map here. Create points of interest, keep it to a sentence or two. That's what I gotta learn to do. Keep it to a sentence or two. Shut the fuck up. Manage story hooks. If a news hook was left untouched last time, consider if it disappears and what the consequences might be or escalates. Consider if the number of hooks is getting onerous or if the hook could be merged with another somehow. Don't overload yourself. Sorry, buddy. I'm a Voltorb or an Electro ready to explode. Plant news. Using the above list, make short snippets to give you to your players before or during the next episode. Sure, that sounds cool. A good way to handle this for your sanity might be to have a board or channel where you post the news. In between sessions where you post the news. Okay, actually, that's not a bad idea. I guess it was a bad idea, you might have to put it in the book, right? Other GMs might prefer to send it naturally during a downtime portion, or filler episode to get a final decision as the downtime concludes. Let the players pick and get ready to improvise. Your players might ignore every single piece of news you give them and decide to do something of their own volition. This is fine. They're simply making their own point of interest. See the invisible rail network of recycling content. Just let the existing hooks develop around the PCs and let the realistic consequences of their actions follow. The prep loop continued. Expand on the chosen hooks, okay? Don't prepare the details of every hook you write. Plagiarize yourself. Reduce, reuse, recycle. I need, after all my years, this is the one thing I haven't mastered. Part of me is because I'm like, players saw this map already. I don't want to ever use it again across any of my games. Literally yesterday, I was preparing the players to go to a castle, or rather the players had already gone to the castle and we ended the session. I had so many castle maps from other games, but at least one player here or 2 players there had seen the map in a previous campaign, not even like the previous session, the previous campaign. And on the VTT, you have to painstakingly light the corners, light everything, put doors and windows. So you're not building the map, but you're building what the characters can see, right? It's like a video game, and you walk into a room, you can see the room, but there's the 4 walls. You don't have that real world. You can kind of see the whole map and just pretend you don't know what's there till you get there. No, you're literally exploring like a video game, running down a dark hallway. You can't see shit besides the hallway. You got to strike a torch, or you're not gonna be able to see in the dark, or use your dark vision. Anyways, so instead of using an old map, because I knew one of my players had seen it before, I just scoured the internet for a new one and then set it all up. And I hated myself afterwards, but we still had a blast. Again for the back. Don't prepare the details of every hook you write. Run the game. Return to the beginning and repeat. Oh, this is a great chart here. I'm happy. Obviously, we covered all of it, but it's really nice to have a visual chart, a quick reference. Check in on player goals. Have factions, points of interest, create hooks, make new ones, countdowns, triggers, prune or combined, plant news with the PC's pick, kill your darlings, mental exercise, prep encounters, recycle, run the game. Awesome. Further reading. I read a lot of books and blogs by some very smart people while thinking about how to structure a Pokemon game. And while these tackle all different kinds of games that have their own biases and uses, all the following are good readings for any GM. The Alexandrian, so you want to be a game master. Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, one of my favorites. Robin's Laws of Good Game Design, Game Mastering. The Same Page Tools, the Without Numbers series. I'm actually only familiar with Lazy Dungeon Master. And I've scouted a lot of content over the years. It's also possible that I'm forgetting the titles and have read the content. Okay, a sample episode. I could already tell I love this. Look at this artwork here. Oh my god, it's so good. I'm looking at the river here is flowing gently. Someone might be hiding nearby. Alright, sample episode. Help, I have no notes for session tonight. Running an episode or journey can be intimidating. It's a first-time GM, even with tools in the above section. Sometimes even an established GM will be like a structure or starter from which to run. Would like, yep. Or maybe you didn't have time to make notes this week and you're dying. You're dying, Squirtle. To remedy any and all of these situations, here's a sample episode to run for a group of newbies to moderately experienced trainers. Authored by a Skullcar, a noble cause, a tale of high miscommunication that can be run on its own or easily slotted into an existing journey. It is recommended to read through the entire module before running this episode. Makes sense. GMing? Here, you drop this. Oh god. I think that was the King's Rock. Yeah, there we go. In this episode, the party is hired by the local Poke fan club to investigate a local archaeology dig on claims that their digging has caused a strange occurrence around the area. The adventure begins when the party finds and saves the archaeologists, who tell the party that they would leave if they could find some artifacts that have been stolen. Setting. This episode starts in a small town near some woods, with a river running through them. GMs can call it Satpool Town, and the surrounding area, Satpool Woods, or change the names of the various locations to fit into the geography of their existing region. If you're running this with a fresh group that only has their starters, it's advisable to allow them to heal up newly captured Pokemon, so they can use them in the upcoming encounters. Kind of like that rule. I guess that's what the heal ball's for sometimes, but that's a nice thing. The new GMs. You see a small break in between it. I'm enjoying my... What is this? Medium ice pumpkin spiced signature latte. Man, it's a long ass title. I walked in Dunkin', I was like, I'm gonna get one of those seasonal things today. I never get that. To new GMs, there are plenty of opportunities for creative use of moves and abilities to mix up how trainers approach the upcoming encounter, such as using trapping moves to prevent running and force a fight. Some examples are given for alternatives, but don't feel constrained by what is on the page. Okay, a sample episode. Reading encounters. This episode has numerous Pokemon battle encounters, and thus has stats for each encountered Pokemon. Below, there's a sample stat block to demonstrate the layout of each encounter. Each Pokemon has a special ability, types, 4 moves, and a toughness score. There may be more than one of a statted Pokemon in an encounter. It will be specified in the text describing the encounter setup. If this is the case, there are space for features and hazards. Remember, non-boss wild Pokemon have 2 wound boxes by default. Oh, I forgot all about that. Wild Pokemon have 2 wound boxes, so you have an advantage in fighting them. Which makes sense. Alright, anatomy of an encounter stat block. Joltix. Oh man, Joltix did not make it into my gens that I'm using. Alright, the Pokemon special ability and a suggested ruling for that ability. Swarm. It calls in backup when cornered. When down to 1 wound, bug type moves gain a +1 bonus. Excellent. Pokemon's toughness rating 4. Pokedex ID and name of the Pokemon. Joltex, the bug electric Pokemon. A good boy, a fine lad. There we go. Pokemon move list. Dice steps associated with each move and its types. D8, D6, D4, D6. Bug, electric, poison, bug. Arena hazards and miscellaneous notes. Arena features. Arcade. Arena hazards. Gamers. Oh god. That's not even the correct use of that. Introduction. Open on the party arriving in the middle mornings at Pokefan Club. Kids and adults alike gather here to celebrate their love of Pokemon to work on projects involving them. Soon after the party arrives and interacts with the other members, Geoff will approach the party. Geoff. We're just going to call him Off. Once their intention to help with the archaeologists is confirmed, he will give a rundown of the situation. A small group of archaeologists have begun digging in a cave in the forest recently, and has uncovered a lot of artifacts and precious stones of old. To recover such devices. Around the same time that the archaeologists began digging things up about a week ago, the forest ecosystem has been thrown into disarray. The normally bustling woods have become almost empty of Pokemon, and those that have remained have been more aggressive than usual. Within the past couple of days, the nearby river has been breaking its banks and causing trouble for the Pokemon that live on its edge. If pressed, Geoff will tell the group that the fan club itself has tried convincing the archaeologists to stop their dig before, but hopes that a third party asking them will be more convincing. Yeah, give us your money, especially when you beat them in a Pokemon battle. Give us everything you got off, and then get the hell out of town. Are we the bad guys? Once the party understands the situation, Off will give them instructions on how to reach the cave where the archaeologists have been digging, and send them on their way with haste. He lets them know they can return to the club once the job is done and get rewards. The trek through the forest should display some of the problems Geoff mentioned. Luckily, it's a short jaunt to the cave where the archaeologists are working. Before the party enters the cave, though, they can hear sounds of conflict coming from inside, with multiple voices yelling and lots of crashing and banging. Geoff, Ulf, him, head of the Loki Pokefan Club, and an avid Pokemon cosplayer, loves the unique ecosystem in the woods around the area. Encounter. Stop the cave Pokemon. The archaeologists are being assaulted by a small group of very agitated Pokemon. The party looks closely at the scene. They can deduce that the Pokemon aren't hurting anyone, and are mostly just trashing their camp and causing property damage. Terra, who until now has been trying to convince her Kabuto to battle the wild Pokemon, will ask the party to help them. Include a mixture of the following Pokemon equal to the number of players. It's also a good chance to look at your player's wish list and put any cave Pokemon they want in here. This encounter can be approached as a social or battle encounter. If social, the PC's hesitation is that without a ranger, the team has been disturbing their nest by accident. Oh, can be approached as social or battle. Okay, and then it's if social. Their nest by accident. Their trait is ride or die for cool rocks. One of my players literally loves rocks, so this is like a great potential plug-in adventure. A note, if the wild Pokemon are rolling terribly, don't be afraid to quietly fudge or adjust rolls to make things more interesting. Or introduce saving throws that aren't in the rules. Make this throw here. If you fail, all this bad shit happens. You need a 10. A 10? Yeah. Archaeologist Terra, she, her. Leader for the archaeologists excavating the ruins cave and good friends of Kayla. Has a Kabuto, which she dotes on. Just wants her stuff back and is willing to even work with the party sent by the Poke Club to achieve that. Should be played rather deadpan and straight to the point, but not emotionless. If the party shows an interest in her work, she gets just as energetic as Off. Okay, we got some more sample stat blocks here. I'm loving how condensed these blocks are. Even if they don't have like the breakdown of what the features do. Because I don't know if they're just raw damage moves or utility or like how Supersonic works in this system. But that's cool. Once the problem Pokemon's rampage is dealt with one way or another, Terra will thank the party for their help and ask what brought them to the cave. The The party brings up the Pokefan Club. Tara immediately get defensive and start badmouthing the club as nosy busybodies. Her side of the story is the archaeologists found this cave with valuable artifacts inside and went through all the legal channels to start digging here. They even got a Pokemon Ranger, Kayla, to help them make sure they didn't disturb any Pokemon. Wow, look at all this great artwork and layout design and characters. This is a really great adventure so far. A rookie Pokemon Ranger who assigned herself to the archaeologist team to help her friend Tara. Her partner Pokemon is a Combuskin. Oh my god, one of my players has a Chimchar. I could see a really cool battle potentially going down with Chimchar and Combuskin. These two fire on the verge of fighting Pokemon regarding Chimchar. Having a go at it. Maybe it's for fun. Maybe at the end of the challenge, he's like, "Excuse me, I really want to fight your Combuskin." And the Ranger's like, "Alright, well, I'm not going to hold back." And it could be a really great scene between Combuskin and Chimchar fighting. I'm like 90% sure I'm going to run this adventure at some point. About a week ago, they found a King's Rock, along with a stash of evolutionary stones. Then about 5 days ago, every pointy stone they had found was stolen, including the King's Rock. The culprit left tracks behind, in the shape of a cylinder with small protrusions from it. Tara thinks it's the tail of one of Geoff's Kangaskhan cosplays. Then, 2 days ago, all the evolution stones were stolen from the camp. The tracks left this time looked like small ovals. Tara thinks the sign means that the club employed children, those dastards. If pressed, Tara will admit that their only guard was her cowardly Kabuto. Last night, Kayla decided she would go after the thieves. It hasn't reported back since. Tara is worried for her since the Pokemon have more aggressive lately. It's been more aggressive lately. Today was the first time the archaeologists had been actively attacked by Pokemon. Okay. She can't remember if she went downstream or upstream though. The river's swelling has washed away the footprints too. The trainer's best bet is to pick a direction and walk. Alrighty. As the party travels upstream, nothing noticeable changes. It will take some work, maybe a research roll, before they find multiple tracks in the mud. Near the river that matches the description of the tracks Tara told them about. Following these leads the party to a slope road. Okay. Sitting at the edge of the river, tailing the water, who ignores the party at first. It's probably drooling and stuff, right? They are very dumb and are very slow to react to nearly anything. I'm gonna have a lot of fun role-playing myself. Slow poke. Smiling, drooling, waving for no reason, eating half the fruits but never finishing them. Is this my spirit animal? Am I a slowpoke in real life? Or am I a slow bro? Alright, soon the slowpokes begin to congregate at the river's edge, being led by two slow bros. They start to rain dance in unison, bringing harsh rain to the river, and threatening to break its banks. If the trainers don't stop this, everyone in the area will be washed downstream. This is a hybrid disaster battle encounter. The trainers have 3 to 4 rounds of countdown before being swept downstream. If the trainers fight their way through this one, 3 slowpokes will protect the 2 slow bros. If they are swept away, transition appropriately to the climax. What a word. Again, the structure, the art, the setup, the simpleness of what the hazard is and why the hazard is. Awesome. This has been so informative. Slowpoke encounter aftermath. Once the dance has been stopped, the party will be approached by Bumpy, the shiny Slowpoke. What? What does Slowpoke shiny look like? I have to look at that in a little bit. There's a pit full of stolen pointy rocks, including the King's Rock, which Bumpy will show the party and then put on the King's Rock. With no shelter, though, he can't evolve into a Slowking. The Slowpokes can also try to convey that there is a blockage in the river to the shelters, which they hope to destroy with the flood. Once the party understands the situation and starts to head downstream or both, they'll meet a fraught Kayla along the way with no stylus, who tells the party that an enraged group of Poliwags, Whirls, and Rafts are marching towards them to grab the King's Rock. Head to the climax. Excellent. I guess you can wash up next to the the climax then. Slowpoke, Bumpy. A shiny Slowpoke. Is that really its shiny? Are we going to be disappointed by another shiny in the game? Oh, man. Even if they just, like, always do, like, a color palette swap. Make the whole thing white and then the tip of its tail pink, for example. Just switching out its already kind of built-in format. Be better than putting someone slightly a lighter shade. Like, there's some really epic shinies out there that I wish was just the norm for every Pokemon. Every Pokemon doesn't have to be epic, but the shiny can be, diverse. Encounter downstream Poliwrath worlds. As the party heads downstream, after a time, they hear a girl yelling in the distance. It's pretty easy to make out that she's arguing with someone who took something from her. That girl is Kayla, the ranger. 2 Poliwraths and 2 Poliwhirls, one of which is Rocky. The reason that she hasn't reported back to camp is obvious. The Poliwhirls have stolen and broken her ranger stylus. It's been tossed between the Pokemon. She'll ask for their help dealing with them. If asked, she'll explain that she followed the footprints downstream and ended up going in circles until this group jumped her. Her combustion won't be much help because of its typing. The Poliwhirls also split off to play with the party. They'll try to grab anything that isn't tied down. Their leader Rocky is one of the players. Is the one the players have to appeal if they want this to stop. As soon as anyone starts to be aggressive, though, the Poliwhirls freeze, then jump into the river and swim away, still holding any items they stole. The chase is on. This is a competition encounter where the PCs will race to get more hits than the Polys. Each Pokemon or trainer or team should get 2 rolls before the chase ends, taking turns. At the end of the rolls, the team with most hits succeed. Critical hits should give hits towards the count and a chance to modify the arena. That's really cool. To give the players an edge, have there be 1 less Poly than the total player count. Okay? The Pokemon are much more cooperative after being chased down. They'll hand back anything they stole and take the party further downstream to the dam, which the Poliwhirls have built. If the party lost the previous encounter, they can easily track the thieves down here by the direction they were going. The dam is rather large, the result of around 2 days' work. It's also definitely the reason why the river has been breaking its banks lately. There are lots of Poliwhirls and even a few Poliwraths working on it, including any mons that escaped the earlier chase. The guide mom will lead the party beyond the dam where the Politoad has built a small shelter in a bundle of trees. Rocky is here too if he escaped. After a quick talk between the Pokemon, the Politoad will convey to the party via drawings of his side of the story. Rocky needs the King Rock to evolve into a Politoad and lead the clan, but the Slowpokes won't hand it over. So they built the dam to block the Slowpokes from reaching the sea and the shelters, and stole the evolution stones to evolve into Poliwraths. They would love to tear down the dam if the Slowpokes gave them the rock. Once the party is understanding the situation or enough time has passed, the group starts to rumble a little bit. And I guess those are like research roles or even heart roles to kind of understand if there weren't drawings. The group starts to rumble a little bit, and the sound of rushing water slowly grows louder, accompanied by an unmistakable sound of slow poke. The image, but with polys. Use your imagination. I'm beginning to believe, Matrix style. Poliwhirl, Rocky, shiny Poliwhirl. Okay. Is this how we're going to identify like unique characters in all adventures? One of them shiny. The show did do that a few times with when 2 of the same Pokemon were in conflicts. One was shiny, or had a very noticeable design like a scar or fluffy hair. Climax encounter face-off. If the party went to the Slowpokes, the Poliwhirls are making a break for the King's Rock, which the Pokes stand firmly in the way of. If the party went to the Poliwhirls, the Slowpokes crash through the dam, and the Poliwhirls stand the last defense to keep the Slowpokes from getting to the sea. Either way, the 2 sides are standing face to face. With the party, the only thing that can stop this from becoming an all-out brawl, Kayla will say she has an idea, and tell the players to keep the 2 clans occupied while she catches the Shelder. She runs off, and now it's time for trainers to try and calm the Pokemon down. This is a social encounter. Alright. If they fail at or decide not to talk the Pokemon down, a brawl starts. That side's Pokemon won't attack them, so they're going to be on one of the faction side, right? 1 Slowpoke, 1 Slowbro, 1 Poliwhirl, and 1 Poliwrath, Bumpy, and Rocky. Wow. Refer to the stats on the previous page for the first 3 in Rocky. Whoever ends up with the rock and the shelter once Kayla Killer returns rather quickly. Will put it on and wait to evolve, but nothing will happen. Chaos will quickly break out as both clans of Pokemon begin to panic. Smart trainers will know you have to trade a King's Rock in order to evolve with it. The solution is friendship in the end. Both Bumpy and Rocky would be pretty open suggestions now, since their plans didn't work. Once the evolutions have happened, the day is saved. Together the clans will tear down the dam, and both will go on their way, organizing themselves after the harrowing week they've had. Okay, awesome. Tara and the archaeologists in general are extremely glad to see Kayla return safely. Tara will affirm her promise to stop the dig now that everything is solved. Upon return to the Pokemon Club, Alf is still there, and glad to see the party. He's reluctant to accept the apology, but harbors no ill will, he guesses. He'll quickly give his rewards to the party and invite them to a few Pokemon-themed cupcakes as well. For rewards, try 3 Pokemon XP, an Evolution Stone or a King's Rock to evolve a Pokemon in the party. If running item rules, give 2 monies. Or in my games, 200 monies. Egg rules. If a trainer happens to want an egg, the Pokemon Club is full of them. The archaeologist could have a spare fossil if the party earns their trust too. If you have a group that likes to completely ignore plot points, employ the invisible rails. Find them no matter where they go. Okay, I'm very familiar with that. Holy crap, did we do it? I think we did it. Oh, can I flip this? It doesn't like me flipping it. Let me try it one more time. I might need to find. Okay, so I can't flip it well in the PDF to show you guys, but let me try. We got one of the pages upright, and then all the other pages screwed up. Pokemon creation XP. Okay, these are like quick. These are just simple things. Oppose rolls and beam struggles. Okay, this is stuff I really like, but how do I properly utilize it? I think they have a downloaded pages for them anyways. Okay, here we go. Trainer creation advancement. This is nice for tonight. I can use this for my session 0. TLDR rulings. Okay, GM cheat sheet. I can get all this ready for tonight. Awesome. All right, we've completed the entire book. I know I skimmed some sections, flubbed up other sections. I'm horrible at reading stuff aloud. I'm way better at just reading it in my head. I don't like to use too much brain power. That's why the Slowpoke journey was all about me. Anyways, I have my session 0 tonight. We will be streaming the campaign. For those of you who are on different time zones, we'll be having it at around 11:30 or 12 on Mondays, p.m. Eastern. I'm in New York, so right now it's 9:30, for example. We're going to be running this game really late at night, 11:30 at night, 12, stuff like that. And the game's only going to be about 2 hours long because of that reason. But I'm so stacked throughout the week, the amount of games I run, I've got a family, I've got kids, that we had to squeeze in a game somewhere. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Anyways, I might later put together a video, maybe even a learning series on how to play Pokeymanz, now that I've reviewed the book once. So be on the lookout for that. But as usual, trainers, have a great day, and catch them all, or follow whatever calling you have. Thanks for watching.